Welcome to the Mindset Evolution podcast, powered by Self-Recoding, world-class consulting and coaching services that you can access at selfrecoding.com. Self-Recoding is a unique blend of neuro-healing modalities that will empower you to reach your full potential. Join thousands of others who have experienced rapid results in their journey of personal growth. Now enjoy our show where we bring you tools for a powerful mind with your hosts, Kathi Tate and Daisy Pup.
And hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mindset Evolution podcast. We are your hosts, Bald and Blonde. I'm Kathi Tate, and with me, as always, Daisy Pup. Hi, Daisy.
Hello, my dear friend. It's been a while that we have been producing a show, and I'm very much looking forward still what's up your sleeves, just as if we recorded the first time. And I truly appreciate seeing you, and I'm glad that we continue. Although it is less frequent, nevertheless, the content quality is persistent.
Absolutely. And we have both been super busy, so we are grateful to be able to get this recording in. Today, we're going to talk about arrogance versus ignorance, how similar they are, how different they are, and how we can be the best version of ourselves without being either of those two things, I guess.
Now, that's a big call. Well, I do believe we are all ignorant to a degree because we don't know what we don't know, and we don't see what we don't see. We don't hear what we don't hear. That does not mean that these things we don't see or don't feel or don't hear, that they are not existing. So that's ignorance. Now, arrogance is when I believe that I own the truth and all that I know and see and feel and hear is the only thing and the only realm where existence exists. And I do believe that many people dress up their ignorance with arrogance so that they don't appear so ignorant or ignorant. I'd like to throw this out here at the very beginning. I do believe there's a huge difference between ignorance and ignorance. Why? Because ignorance is, I don't know what I don't know. Ignorance is that I know, but nevertheless, I act as if I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I would agree with that ignorance as being the true meaning of ignorance, because I think the other one where we don't know what we don't know is probably more naivety.
Oh, I don't know if naivety or naivete is ignorance, because I don't think in many situations in my life that I was ignorant. I was very well aware of it. Nevertheless, I was still naive. And to a degree, I still am. And most likely I will remain, because that's part of my nature. That I do believe in the good.
Yeah, I mean, I think naivety brings in an element of innocence or well-intentions, good intentions, whereas perhaps ignorance is a bit more willful, that we're maybe deliberately ignoring that there's a truth, but we don't want to see it.
That's ignorance. Ignorance is when you don't see what's on my desk right here, right now, and you don't see what's on my desk right here, right now. So you're ignorant of what is present on my desk. Let's say you know that there's a poisonous snake and you're ignoring it instead of cutting off the recording and say, Daisy, take care of the snake because it's poisonous, it's going to kill you. I think that there's a big difference. Now, when you don't see that there's a poisonous snake, that's ignorance because you don't know what you don't know and you don't see what you don't see.
So if we don't know what we don't know, how do we find out what we don't know?
Curiosity.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I also feel like maybe arrogance has a lack of curiosity on purpose because they have this need to be right.
Now that's to the point. I like that. Oh, she's hitting the nail on the head. To me, how I see it now, maybe overnight I'm enlightened in a different way and I will have a different point of view or a different aspect that I can see that I don't see now. When I am arrogant, that is oftentimes, I don't think that I'm arrogant. Maybe I come across as such at times to a specific breed of people. Know that I never, ever intend to be arrogant. Never. To me, arrogance has something of superiority. So I'm better than you are. I know what you don't know. When I'm an educator, then I'm appreciative of your question. Hey, you just did something here that seems so wonderful to me. And can you show me how that is? An arrogant human would respond like, oh, you're stupid. You don't know that, for example. I think that is already the beginnings of arrogance. When I'm an educator, though, I can be understanding and appreciate your curiosity. And I can share with you based on the humble knowledge that I have now, because maybe tomorrow I know better. And I can share with you and honor your curiosity. Then therefore there's no place for arrogance. Now, why is arrogance and ignorance oftentimes very close to one another? So I think is because oftentimes when I observe arrogance in people around me or in life, there's a lack of knowing or an ignorance of that the more you know, the more you realize actually that you know very little. And then that turns upside down or downside up into arrogance. So for the reason that I must be right. And that is where we circle back to the need of being right. And that is a very childlike behavior that most likely has not been addressed. Oftentimes it is, I'd say almost always, but I really like to step back from generalizations between prenatal, so the stage and the time that we spend in the womb of mommy, pre-birth, and the age of 7. Because that is where we still are like, I call it little sponges, where we take in everything without questioning. It's almost like a hypnotic state, and we believe it all. That's why children believe oftentimes in specific figures that then later on they find out that they don't exist. For example, during holiday seasons. And then the first huge betrayal happens that is acknowledged by a child that makes them then question everything and anything.
Maybe that's a good thing, though. Maybe it acts as a prompt to start questioning everything.
Maybe it starts a prompt to start questioning. I do believe that children who grow up in different cultures, where these fairy tale-like figures are not introduced, in puberty, also the questioning starts. So it is not related to specific cultures putting out lies. And I think that is also something that maybe parents want to think about, that, look, this is how in our culture we celebrate things. That does not mean that these figures are real. For example, a rabbit, like a bunny, or someone with a long beard, or Cupido.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing to bring into this conversation, because as a parent who did this without realizing any better, and now as a grandparent of a grandchild who's probably going to learn the same thing, I've asked my child about this, and I think they are going to continue the Kris Kringle tradition. And I think it comes from a place, though, of wanting a childhood to be magical. I don't think it comes from a place where we're going to lie to them and deceive them. I think as parents, we want magic for our children.
That's the ignorance.
Yes. And that's why I think this is important in this conversation, because until you know that's why you're doing this, how do you change it? And maybe magic doesn't exist, but little minds and little hearts are just so beautiful and wonderful. It is magical seeing them see things about the world that they didn't know yet. And that often only happens when we're very young, because as we're exposed to more and more as we grow older, that sort of wonderment can disappear because of, I guess, the harshness of reality a lot of the time. And so I get that parents want to give their children something that's magical, even though it isn't real or true. And it does tear me a little bit On one side, I think that honesty and truth and being real is super important. And on the other side, I have this wish for them to be able to be naive and full of that wonder and magic for as long as they can before the world impacts them. By doing that, maybe we're just setting them up for hurt and failure. And like you said, a betrayal by the parents, which is of quite a large magnitude, the impact that's, I guess, having on the child when they learn the truth. I remember when I let the Kris Kringle cat out of the bag, so to speak. I think he was about 10 and quite shocked. But actually, I genuinely thought he knew that it wasn't a real thing from the other kids, and he didn't. And so I suppose that was a betrayal by me of him by not sitting him down and saying, these things are fairy tales, they're not real, they just represent this or that or whatever in our culture. And do we willfully keep our children in ignorance to protect them, or are we doing it because it's what everybody does and we don't give enough thought to it?
That's the question that I had put out here. So is it ignorant or is it ignorance? So you as a grandmother now, what will you choose?
Well, I have to respect the wishes of the parents. It's not up to me to choose.
I'm not ignoring what you say. I disagree, though. When you want a child to remain in the magic, how about you educate your grandchild in the magic that's within? When you share with them where actually that coming through the chimney really stems from, because there is a huge neurological story behind that, or what neuroscience found out afterwards, after decades of and centuries of these fairy tale-like cultural traditions. So what do you choose? So because when you now choose, you want to help your child remain in the magic, but you know that there's a huge betrayal. Do you participate in the betrayal or are you ignoring it?
It's a good question, Daisy.
I never said that. I asked
good question.
Simple questions. I never said that.
And what role does a grandparent play in that picture when it's not their decision or not their choice, but perhaps peripherally? I can add value by teaching him what you say, like about other things that are about them and their innate ability and their innate magic and their innate way that you can encourage them to see the world with wonder, even though reality can be harsh. There are still amazing things every day, everywhere that we put blinkers on to adults because we get too engrossed in the little parts of our lives and we forget, I think, or are we choosing to ignore the wonder that is around us? Everywhere you look in this world, there are wonderful, amazing things that nature has created and put on this place with us, which are actually incredible. Like bees, for instance, one of the most amazing creatures in the world and so important to our survival. It's an example of how we could encourage curiosity and still keep that wonder and that awe for what nature has created to assist us in how we live, as opposed to the stark reality of day-to-day life that we have put into our societies.
The childlike naivete and that wonder is within them based on how their brains work, which wavelength their brain functions on until they are 7 years old, because it's shifting. And that wonder is within them. Now, do you participate? I'm not asking you now directly, but I maybe do. Maybe let me ask you directly. So now that you know that actually the breach of trust is going to cause a much bigger harm than keeping up a fairy tale that is tradition, but you know that it's harmful and not real, do you support that? Or do you stick to your standard? Now, I understand that it's the parents' choice to a degree, what they do with their children. But Nevertheless, you're the grandmother. What do you do with your grandchild? And it goes back to standards. When my standard is that I'm handing over benevolent knowledge that is real, can still be magical at times, because how the body functions, the body-mind system is just magical. The energetic field of the heart, electromagnetic field of the heart. I mean, to me, there are no traditions that can make up for the value of knowing, to me, that the electromagnetic field of my heart is like 3 meters in diameter, 360 degrees in 3D. When I understand that I can self-regulate because I'm aware of my mirror neurons, that in my brain cannot distinguish between I'm doing it, or I observe someone doing it, or I imagine someone doing it. The same areas in the brain light up on the scans. So when I will have a grandchild, I know what standard I'm choosing, and I'm not judging anyone who chooses differently. Why? Because I'm ignorant of what makes them hold on to a tradition rather than showing a child how truly powerful it is.
Or maybe you can do both.
I stick to the standard.
Because, I feel like your point is the betrayal.
Not only that, it's disempowering. Look, our lives are built based on the beliefs. You ask 100 psychologists and they will tell you. You ask neuroscientists and epidemiologists. Ask Bruce Lipton. Your beliefs are making up your mind, are making up your life, even on a genetical level. Do I want to support my child or my grandchild or my great-grandchild to be aware? I give you an example. I spoke with a German gentleman the other day, and he said, actually, we send our children in good faith to school where they learn systems for 15 years, and then later on, once they're out of school, it takes them 15 years to get rid of them and to regain the strength, in a good case scenario, that they were born with. So what is my standard? Am I arrogant about it and I said, no, everybody did it and now I'm doing it too? Or am I ignorant about it because I don't know what harm it causes? Or am I ignoring, although I do know? And these are questions I think every one of us can only answer that for themselves. I'm not saying what anyone should do. I know what I would choose. And I choose based on the standards that I have now, based on the ignorance that I have overcome through learning and being curious enough to understand the consequences.
Yeah, I understand. And I do agree with you. I think that the crux of this, once again, is self-awareness, because that seems to be the answer to I don't know what I don't know, is seeking, using that curiosity to find out what you don't know, and then being able to get more information. So, yeah, let's bring it back to the arrogance sector of this too, because I think that the answer is the same. I think the answer to overcoming arrogance is also self-awareness and questioning things.
Yes, I think so. On the other hand, we are all born with that innate curiosity. So we as adults surrounding a child are responsible of the programming the child receives. There is no need for self-awareness in the child. It is very important, so I think, of the programming we give by how we live, not only what we say, but how we lead and live our everyday life. Now, when a child sees an arrogant caretaker parent in their life, most likely, depending on their gender, they will either behave that way or they will find a partner who behaves that way because that becomes their standard. So we're all participants in how the next generation will either make it or take it or fake it or decay. So the self-awareness, I think, comes into importance for those who were programmed unnaturally. So then why would I, as a parent, once I know, when I don't know, I'm ignorant of it. When I'm ignorant of it, some people have the tendency to turn arrogant about it. So who are you now telling me? Whoa, 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 whoa. But when I know, self-awareness is worse than toilet paper because it doesn't help anything. not even to sneeze or to clean up any remains of. But when I choose ignorance, I'm unaware of it. When I choose ignorance, that's also arrogance, isn't it, to a degree?
I don't know that we choose ignorance.
No, but ignorance, when we choose ignorance,
yeah,
is that not
that
a
I
little
agree
bit
with. Yes.
arrogance?
That I agree with. Yes, absolutely. Because I think that you're right about the programming, and I think that there's probably the majority of us as adults in this day and age have been programmed to a degree.
We all have.
Yeah. And so the awareness of that having happened to us is probably the starting point. And then we get to choose whether we want to stay ignorant, be arrogant, or start actually learning, researching, using that curiosity to actually figure out what the programming was, how it's impacted us, whether that's the way we want to be. Once we can see through it, does it change the view of what the world is to us and therefore on our children and grandchildren? And so I think at some point there has to be like a start. How do you learn that you've been ignorant? How do you realize that I don't know what I don't know? Because there is a point when we are programmed where we're brainwashed into thinking that what we're taught is the real truth and the only truth. And so often there has to be something that triggers or prompts some situation where you start to realize that you have been programmed and that you are ignorant. Not saying it's anybody's fault, but it just is. And so that trigger or that event that awakens you to that is very important. And which possibly brings me back to my first earlier question about what if the initial discovery of our childhood magical figures not being real is that trigger point? I don't know, just putting it out there.
I do not believe that it needs a trigger point. I do believe that the early programming is the key here. When a child learns healthy human values and a child learns healthy standards that are presented in everyday life by living and leading by example from the people around them, the programming will be very different and there's no need for any trigger or activator.
I do agree with that, yes. And going forward, that is something that we can do. But there's already a whole 8 billion people on this planet pre-programmed. And so they need an awakening point. I guess that's my point.
Okay. Now, who am I to say who needs what? I can only choose for myself what I need. That requires that I'm connecting with myself again and maybe shut out a little bit of the external noise so that I can reconnect with my body, with my mind, with my spirit. And then I can choose what I'm receptive for and receptive of. And then automatically I will forward that. Because why would I go backwards? Once I know, I cannot unknow. What I've seen, I cannot unsee. What I heard, I cannot unhear. I can disconnect the emotional charge to what happened to me. I'm living example that it's possible. And so are you.
100%. Yes,
yeah?
100%.
So,
but it's that first finding out, the first part. How do you realize you're ignorant?
Well, when they are ready. It's like naturally when an apple falls off the tree when it's ripe. Who am I to determine you're supposed to be ready? Why?
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree. But how does somebody know for themselves? How do our listeners look at their own life and go, or maybe it's just because they run across our podcast and it's the thing that starts the curiosity. I think it's different for every single person.
Yes.
But I think the point I suppose I'm trying to make is that a lot of people are willfully ignorant because it's too hard to be anything else or too scary. Everybody around them is happily ignorant.
Okay. When I live all by myself, and I don't have somebody who is cohabiting with me. And I'm surrounded by lots of mosquitoes where I live and no-see-ums. It's really true. These are tiny little sand fleas that they're so tiny you can't see them. That's why they're called no-see-ums. And I have lots of iguanas. And I have Harleys, and I have, other than that, much nature surrounding me besides the Atlantic Ocean. That does not make me into the Atlantic Ocean. It does not make me into the mosquito or the no-see-um or the iguana or the crystals on the beach. So I can choose. So what I surround myself with will have an impact on me. Now, when I notice that something doesn't feel good to me, or it's hurtful, or it's painful, then that's our internal alarm system, right? It shows us, oh, we're a little off. Now, we are off that natural state of being as we were born. So how do I understand that I don't know what I don't know? That's fact. Make peace with it. Stop the arrogance. Yes, I know it. Maybe you do. And if you do, then why don't you share it in a way? This is how I see it today. But why is it that someone is trying to convince someone else about something? When they are ready, they will come and say, hey, I'm ready now. Maybe not asking you, but asking someone who's like-minded or who has the ability to offer similar knowledge. So I do believe that it's a call for all of us, and I include myself, to stop offering someone a haircut when they went into the store to get a gallon of milk. Stop doing that. Because chances are that when they want a haircut, then they will ask for a haircut. Now, when I, in the meantime, live and lead by example, I cannot really speak about a haircut because my hair is so long, I do that rarely. So it's not like I need to have it fashioned out every month or...
Me neither.
So that's... Nevertheless, it's a good example. I think it's a good visual. So I think. So when I live and lead by example, that might inspire, in spirit, in spiritus. So I help someone else that they reconnect with their spirit. That is inspirational. I inspire. I'm spiritual. Not in the religious way, but I am. And when I know that I am, then I can give anyone and everyone the choice to be ready when they are. And when they are ready, I'm happy to share. And in the meantime, I still live and lead by example, because those who are already ready, they will notice, and then they will come and ask, hey, so how is that? And where did you get that from? And where can I read about it? And how can I learn about that? How did you get to this point of view? How did you emerge from the little baby, that little first spark that's visible, by the way, right? When the sperm meets the egg, where all the information is already in there. And then you're impressed, and certainly impressed and also influenced by the environment that starts in the womb. And then when you are seeing the daylight for the first time, so once you're born into this world, then we are all influenced by that. And okay, so how did you notice that influence that impressed you? Maybe in the wrong way, like with these fairy tale figures for traditions during holiday seasons, for example. Then how did you circle back and regain your innate curiosity? And instead of being arrogant and feeling embarrassed that you don't know what you don't know, appreciate and celebrate your curiosity that you were born with anyways. Children are learning machines. And then when people get older, then they try to regain that learning ability during that speed. Look what a child learns in the first few years of their lives. What are the rules of society? What are the rules of this family to be an appreciated member of it? So I think it is important that we forgive those who surrounded us because they were ignorant or arrogant or ignorant. Either way, let's forgive them. So that will make it much more peaceful within me, and then make me live with that curiosity once it's reignited, or understand, yes, I'm ignorant and I'm also ignorant in specific situations, and make peace with that too. Fighting it or trying to convince others is not the road. I do believe it is time, and it's urgent, that we live and lead by example and accept ourselves. Yes, I am ignorant, and I am ignorant too. And I choose to live without or with as little as arrogance as possible, with as little as possible.
Yeah, and it occurs to me listening to you say all that this is the answer to the divisiveness that we see today as well. Because everybody wants to think that their point of view is the only point of view and the only way that it can be. And so it creates these giant divides between us. Whereas if we backed off from that and came back to a place of curiosity and wanting to understand more, then we could cross all those divides that have been thrust upon us by society.
And when I'm curious, then how can I be arrogant at the same time and stating that I have the truth and I have the answer and this is the only answer that exists? How ignorant is that? And how ignorant is that? Let's say I'm 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 100 years old. By that time, if I have not learned that I don't know what I don't know, and I'm still ignoring that fact, then I think maybe that individual has a different challenge to overcome. When we start listening again, hey, so this is how I see it. So how do you see it? What is it that I can learn and expand on so that I'm less ignorant and less ignorant? And I'm so glad that you see that this leads fully to the end of divide and conquer and to unity. However, whoever believes in whatever, might that be religion or no religion, or they believe in this truth or in that truth, we have so much more as society, as communities, as families, as humans. We have so much more in common. And when we stop ignoring that, then the levels of ignorance can just decrease peacefully.
Yes, well said. And I think that's a wonderful wrap up to this discussion on arrogance and ignorance. And yeah, we would like to know what you guys think. So tell us what you thought about this conversation and what your views on arrogance, ignorance, and ignorance are. And while you're there, tell us what you think of the fairy tales of childhood. I'm really interested to know about whether as a society we should continue those fairy tales, or maybe there's something better that we could be doing.
I think it is important to distinguish between keeping up the lie or holding on to cultural traditions or traditions overall. Why do the two need to go hand in hand? That, okay, let's hold on to the cultural or the traditions or to the habits and how we did it all the time or over the past decades, centuries, in our ancestry, millennia. Why does it need to be tied with a lie?
Yeah.
We can keep the culture alive. We can still have the family come-togethers, but pointing out, by the way, that's a lie. And I want you to know it as you grow up. And actually, it saddens me when I see children who have no choice but be impressed and imprinted by lies, because it's such a big work and such a big effort to let go and transform these old beliefs and especially false beliefs. So I think the question can be or might be or may be, so how can we hold on to tradition in a healthy way without tying them together with lies?
Yeah. Well said, Daisy. Let us know what you think, guys. We're super interested. We love getting your feedback. And please send your questions, because we have done over 200 topics and ideas are welcome. We want to talk about what you want to hear. We want to discuss the things that matter to you guys. So do let us know. You can find us at our website, baldandblonde.live. You can email us at ask@baldandblonde.live. And also a big shout out to selfrecoding.com, who is our major sponsor. And without them, this podcast would not be possible. That's it from us today. We are Bald and Blonde.
Mindset Evolution. Talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening in to the Bald and Blonde Mindset Evolution podcast. Please share our show with your family and friends. Together, we make this world a better place for you, for us, for future generations. When you need consulting or coaching, visit selfrecoding.com. Also, please remember to rate us 5 stars and leave a review and support us at baldandblonde.live. Talk to you soon.